After accidentally wedding a cold-blind CEO, everyone thought she was doomed, not knowing she'd be cherished. Hello, everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support truly means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let us return to our main character. Rain drizzled across downtown Chicago, coating the sidewalks in a thin silver sheen. The city lights reflected in the puddles like trembling constellations. Inside Street Luke's medical center, the air smelled faintly of disinfectant and warm coffee. Nurses moved quickly in soft sneakers, their voices low, almost blending with the steady beeping of machines. Emily Harper stood in the hallway, gripping a stack of medical forms, her breath shaky, her hands trembling from exhaustion. She had been awake for nearly 30 hours. Her mother was fighting an illness that kept dragging them deeper into medical debt with every sunrise. Rent was past due, her second job had cut her hours, and the hospital had just informed her that another bill was coming. Her world felt like a collapsing ceiling with no exit. She pressed her palm to her forehead, trying to steady herself, when a deep voice cut through the corridor. "Miss Harper!" Emily turned. Standing at the end of the hallway was a man dressed in a charcoal suit, perfectly tailored, perfectly immaculate, completely out of place in this wing of the hospital. Beside him stood two attorneys holding leather folders, and in front of him, leaning slightly on a cane, was a tall figure with dark hair, a marble stillness, and a cold presence so sharp the air shifted around him. Adrian Blackwell, the blind CEO whose name alone could rattle boardrooms. His sightless eyes were hidden behind thin black glasses. His jawline was sharp, emotionless, unreadable. The way he stood, shoulders squared, head tilted slightly, was the posture of a man who could command an empire even without seeing it. Emily froze. She had never spoken to him before. She had only seen him once, in this very hospital, after the accident that had taken his vision and left his family scrambling to protect their corporate throne. She had been a volunteer aide that night, fetching blankets and water in the chaos. She had not known he remembered her at all. Adrian stepped forward, his cane touching the floor in a soft, rhythmic tap. "I need to speak to you," he said. His voice was calm, low, and utterly controlled. Emily swallowed. "About what?" There was no hesitation from him. A marriage. The word hit her chest like a strike of lightning. Her breath caught. "I am sorry." "A what?" "A marriage," Adrian repeated, as if he were confirming a business meeting rather than altering two lives. "Specifically, a legally binding arrangement between you and me." Emily stared at him, stunned into silence. One of the attorneys opened the folder and extended a document toward her. "This is the agreement, Miss Harper. Mr. Blackwell requires a spouse immediately to stabilize the company after the board dispute triggered by his brother's scandal. It is a temporary contract. 1 year." Her voice cracked. "But why me?" Adrian lifted his chin slightly, his face still unreadable. "I remember your voice from the night of the crash. You were calm. You were honest. You did not treat me like a headline." Emily felt heat flood her cheeks. "That does not mean I should be your wife." "You need help," he said, his tone cool and direct. "And I need a partner the board cannot manipulate. This arrangement benefits both of us." Her heart thudded painfully. Her mother's bills, the eviction notice, the job she was about to lose. The crushing truth wrapped its hands around her ribs until she struggled to breathe. Adrian took one more step closer. Even blind, he seemed to see straight through her. "This is not romance, Miss Harper," he said softly. "This is survival, for both of us." Emily stared at the contract. The legal lines swam in her vision. One signature could save her family. One signature could trap her forever. The hallway felt too quiet, too bright, too small. "Think carefully," Adrian said, "but understand this. I do not offer anything twice." Emily's fingers tightened around the contract, but her vision blurred as a wave of dizziness rolled through her. She murmured an apology and stepped away from Adrian and the attorneys, retreating into an empty waiting room at the corner of the hallway. Her breath shook as she pressed both hands to the edge of a plastic chair. The fluorescent lights hummed softly above her, too loud for a mind already drowning in fear. She looked down at her phone. 3 missed calls from the billing department. 1 new voicemail from her landlord reminding her that the rent extension was over, and a text from her supervisor that read, "We need to talk about your hours." It felt like every part of her life was collapsing at the same time. Her mother's oxygen machine let out a subtle, rhythmic hiss behind the curtain, separating the waiting room from the patient area. Emily stepped closer, lifting the curtain just enough to see her mother resting, frail and still, the thin hospital blanket pulled up to her shoulders. Emily brushed a strand of hair from her mother's forehead and whispered, "I will fix this. I promise. I just do not know how." The desperation that had been building in her chest finally cracked open. She walked back to the chair and sank down, covering her face with her hands. For a moment, she allowed herself to cry silently, shoulders trembling under the weight of everything she carried. She had been holding this family together for years. She was the one who cooked, cleaned, worked double shifts, chased late payments, and spent nights in emergency rooms. She was the one who smiled through it all so her mother would not feel guilty. But now, she was out of strength, out of time, and almost out of options. A soft knock on the doorframe made her jump. It was one of Adrian's attorneys, a woman with a polite but unreadable expression. She held out a sealed envelope. "Miss Harper," the attorney said gently, "Mr. Blackwell asked me to give you this. It covers your mother's immediate medical expenses. No obligation, regardless of your decision." Emily blinked in shock. "He paid it? He authorized it 10 minutes ago. He said you should not feel pressured by time-sensitive debt." Emily held the envelope against her chest. The relief was sharp, almost painful. "I did not ask him for anything." The attorney nodded. "He knows." The woman stepped out, leaving Emily alone again. Emily stared at the closed door, her heart pounding with something she did not expect: confusion. Why would a cold, distant CEO do something kind without announcing it, without using it as leverage? She stood slowly, the envelope still in hand, and walked back toward the hallway where Adrian waited. His cane tapped softly against the tile floor as he sensed her approach. He lifted his head slightly. "Your mother's treatment is covered," Adrian said before she even opened her mouth. "She deserves care without delay." Emily swallowed hard. "You did not have to do that." "I am aware," Adrian replied. His voice remained calm, but there was a faint thread of honesty woven beneath the cold surface. "But I will not have you agreeing to a contract under the threat of losing a parent. Your decision must be yours." Emily hesitated. She had expected manipulation. She had expected pressure. But she had not expected this. Adrian turned his head toward her, his expression unreadable behind the dark glasses. "If you decline, I will wish you well. If you accept, we will move forward. Either way, your mother's care remains guaranteed." His words settled into the space between them, heavy and disarming. Emily breathed in, then out, steadying herself. The hospital hallway felt different now. The fear that had been crushing her began to shift into something else. Not trust, not yet, but clarity. She looked at Adrian, really looked at him. The man who stood immovable and emotionless. The man whose entire world had been thrown into chaos by a scandal and a tragic accident. The man who needed an anchor he could not see, and the man who, for reasons she could not understand, chose her. Emily closed her fingers around the envelope and whispered to herself, "Maybe this is the only way forward." Adrian waited in silence, giving her the space she needed. Emily finally spoke, her voice quiet but steady. "Tell me everything the contract requires." Adrian's attorneys guided Emily and the CEO into a private consultation room near the administrative wing. The space was quiet, lit by soft overhead panels, with a long table centered beneath a framed print of the Chicago skyline. Emily sat across from Adrian, her fingers interlaced tightly on her lap. The contract lay between them, its pages crisp and heavy with consequence. Adrian rested both hands on the handle of his cane. His posture was straight, precise, almost rigid, but Emily sensed something under the surface, an exhaustion he refused to show. His lead attorney opened the first page. "Miss Harper, Mr. Blackwell asked that we walk you through each clause so that you fully understand the agreement before you make your choice." Emily nodded, her throat tight. Please, go ahead. The attorney began reading aloud, her voice smooth and firm. For the duration of 1 year, Emily Harper will legally serve as the spouse of Adrian Blackwell in accordance with state marriage law. This arrangement is established to stabilize corporate governance and family control following the recent internal dispute. Emily tried to absorb the words, her heartbeat tapping against her ribs. The attorney continued, Clause 1. No romantic obligation. Both parties acknowledge that emotional involvement is neither required nor expected. Emily felt her chest tighten. She glanced at Adrian, but he remained still. Clause 2. Public appearances. The attorney turned the page. Miss Harper will accompany Mr. Blackwell to certain corporate events, charity dinners, and family gatherings. She will be briefed beforehand to ensure consistency in public statements. Emily shifted slightly. So I would have to act like we have a real marriage. To the public, yes, the attorney said. But in private, you may maintain your independence. You will have your own room, your own schedule, and full privacy. Clause 3. The second attorney added, no physical intimacy unless mutually agreed upon. This protects both parties. Emily nodded, trying not to show relief. Clause 4. Confidentiality. Under no circumstances may you disclose the contractual nature of the marriage. Violating this clause triggers immediate penalty. Emily swallowed. What kind of penalty? Termination of compensation and legal action, the attorney replied. It is standard in high-profile marital arrangements. The words felt cold, exact, surgical. The attorney moved on. Clause 5. Financial terms. All existing medical debt for your mother will be fully cleared. Monthly compensation will be deposited into your account. A car service will transport you to all required events. Emily's breath caught. This is a lot. Yes, the attorney agreed. It is, which is why Mr. Blackwell insists that you decide freely. Emily lifted her eyes toward Adrian. And what do you get out of this? Really? Adrian angled his head slightly in her direction. Stability. The board believes I am unfit to lead because of my loss of sight. They believe I am vulnerable. A marriage neutralizes their narrative. It positions me as grounded, supported, and in control. But why me? She asked softly. Adrian's jaw tightened. Because you are not pretending with me. Because you spoke to me that night in the emergency room as if I were a person and not a headline. Because you have nothing to gain from flattery and everything to lose. Emily felt heat rise behind her eyes. She forced herself to breathe slowly. The attorney pushed a pen toward her. If you choose to sign, we can file this with the county clerk today. Emily hesitated. She looked down at the contract again. The paper seemed to glow under the soft lights, every clause carved with a certainty she did not feel. Her life had been a cycle of working until she collapsed, watching bills grow like weeds, and trying to protect her mother with hands that were always too empty. Now there was a solution right in front of her, sharp, cold, and terrifying. She lifted her gaze to Adrian. I do not want to be someone you use to fight your family, she said, and I do not want to be a problem you solve with money. Adrian's expression remained unreadable, but his voice softened just barely. You will not be used. You will not be disrespected. You will be my equal in public and free in private. That is my word. Emily's pulse sped up. And after 1 year? After 1 year, Adrian said, you walk away with your mother safe, your life stable, and no debt. Unless you choose otherwise. Silence filled the room. Emily reached for the pen but paused with it, hovering above the signature line. Her hand trembled. She took one last breath, thinking of her mother's frail face, the overdue rent, the call from the billing office. Then she lowered the pen to the page. When her name landed in black ink, the sound was almost a whisper. Adrian inclined his head slowly. Welcome to the arrangement, Miss Harper. The next afternoon, Emily stood in front of the towering glass doors of Blackwell Holdings, clutching a small tote bag and trying to steady her heartbeat. The city traffic hummed below, and the wind from Lake Michigan pushed against her coat as if urging her to turn back. She inhaled slowly, reminding herself that she had already signed. There was no turning back now. Inside the lobby, everything gleamed. Marble floors reflected the soft gold lighting overhead, and employees in tailored suits moved with purpose. Emily felt painfully out of place in her modest blouse and worn shoes, even though she had ironed them twice that morning. A receptionist greeted her with a professional smile. "Good afternoon. You must be Miss Harper. Mr. Blackwell is expecting you." The receptionist pressed a button. "The assistant will escort you." A moment later, a woman in a navy pencil skirt approached. "Miss Harper? I am Claire, Mr. Blackwell's executive aide. Come with me, please." Emily followed her into the elevator. Her stomach tightened as the doors closed and the elevator rose smoothly toward the top floor. Claire glanced at her with a small, polite smile. "You will be attending several public events with Mr. Blackwell starting next week," Claire explained. "Before that happens, we have scheduled etiquette guidance for the press, wardrobe fittings, and a briefing about the Blackwell family." Emily blinked. "All of that for a marriage that is not real?" Claire nodded gently. "The marriage is real on paper, and the image must be real in public. People will be watching closely, especially now." The elevator chimed. Emily stepped out into a hallway lined with black and white photographs of Chicago in winter. The air felt colder here, quieter. Claire tapped twice on a set of double doors. "Mr. Blackwell, Miss Harper has arrived." "Send her in," Adrian's voice responded. Emily entered the office. It felt less like a workspace and more like a penthouse perched above the city. Floor-to-ceiling windows cast pale afternoon light across the room. Adrian stood near the window with his cane, wearing a charcoal sweater instead of a suit jacket. His presence was still sharp, still commanding, even without seeing her. He lifted his head slightly. "Miss Harper." Emily stepped closer. "Good afternoon." There was a pause, as if he were listening to the rhythm of her footsteps before speaking again. "I trust Claire explained today's schedule." "Yes," Emily answered. "It seems like a lot." "It is," Adrian said calmly. "People in this world do not believe in anything unless it is rehearsed, polished, and displayed under a spotlight." Emily shifted nervously. "And what exactly do they expect from me?" Adrian turned toward her. The afternoon light traced the edge of his profile. "They expect a poised, confident partner who stands beside me without trembling. They expect a woman who knows which fork to use at a charity dinner, which smile to hold when the cameras flash, and which questions to avoid from the press." Emily's shoulders tensed. "I have never been inside a place like this. I do not know any of those things." Adrian's tone softened a fraction. "That is why you will be trained. You will not walk into this unprepared." Claire returned with a laptop and a slim folder. "Miss Harper, these are your schedules. We also arranged a wardrobe session downstairs. A car will take you to the fitting studio in 20 minutes. Emily opened the folder. Rows of printed appointments filled the pages. Media training, social etiquette, gesture coordination, even a note labeled hand positioning for photography. Her voice dropped. "This is like studying for an exam I did not know existed." "You will learn quickly," Adrian said quietly. "You had the courage to sign that contract. That is more strength than most people in this building possess." Emily felt something shift inside her, a flicker of confidence she did not expect. Claire placed a small velvet box on the table. "This will be your public ring, Miss Harper." Emily opened it slowly. The ring was simple but elegant, a thin platinum band with a soft glow. She touched it with trembling fingers. "It is beautiful," she whispered. "It is practical," Adrian replied. "Nothing too extravagant. The board would question that." Emily slipped the ring onto her finger. It felt heavier than it looked. Claire stepped back. "Your car is waiting, Miss Harper." Emily nodded and turned toward the door, but Adrian's voice stopped her. "Emily." She paused. "Yes? There will be moments," Adrian said, "when this will feel overwhelming. You will want to run. You will want to doubt why you agreed. When that happens, remember one thing." Emily waited, breath held. "You are not here to impress them," he said. "You are here because I chose you, and because you chose to stay." Emily left the office with those words echoing in her mind, unsure whether they comforted her or frightened her even more. The fitting studio was located a few blocks from the Blackwell corporate tower, tucked between a luxury jewelry shop and an art gallery. The driver opened the door for Emily, and she stepped out, still adjusting to the weight of the ring on her finger. The city wind brushed against her hair as she entered the building. Inside, the studio glowed with warm lighting and soft music. Racks of gowns and tailored suits lined the walls. A stylist named Marissa greeted her with a bright smile. "You must be Emily. We have been expecting you. Come in. Let us get started." Emily followed her into a private fitting area. Dresses in shades of black, silver, and deep emerald hung neatly, each looking more elegant than anything Emily had worn in her life. Marissa handed her a simple black dress first. "This one is for the charity gala next week. Classic, clean, and sophisticated. It fits the Blackwell image." Emily changed behind the curtain. When she stepped out, Marissa circled her slowly, adjusting the fabric on her shoulders. "It suits you," Marissa said. "You have a very natural presence. People will underestimate you at first, but that is not always a disadvantage." Emily tried to smile. "I am still getting used to all of this." "You will," Marissa replied. "Everyone does, eventually." After several more fittings, Marissa placed a folder in Emily's hands containing photographs of each approved outfit and instructions on how to pair them with hair and makeup styles. Emily stared at the details, feeling a mix of disbelief and pressure. Every outfit, every appearance, every gesture had rules. Her phone buzzed. A message from Claire. "Car arriving in 5 minutes. Media rehearsal at 4 o'clock. Emily exhaled, her nerves tightening like a knot in her stomach. The car dropped her off at a training studio rented specifically for high-profile press coaching. Inside, cameras were mounted to the walls, and a man in a dark blazer approached her. "Miss Harper, I am Daniel. I will help prepare you for interviews and photography sessions." He guided her to a chair under bright studio lights. Emily blinked at the sudden glare. "For your first public appearance as Mrs. Blackwell," Daniel explained, "reporters will ask predictable questions. We will rehearse your responses so that you sound confident and aligned with Mr. Blackwell's narrative." Emily nodded, though her palms had already turned clammy. "Let us begin with posture," Daniel said. Straight back, shoulders relaxed, chin slightly elevated. "Not too much." "Perfect." Emily adjusted her position. "Now, when you stand next to Mr. Blackwell, your hand placement is important. You may rest a hand lightly on his arm if cameras are present. It signals unity." Emily swallowed. "But he is blind. Should I guide him?" Daniel shook his head. "No. He dislikes being guided physically. You will walk beside him, not ahead of him. He will follow your steps by sound. Do not look at his cane. Reporters always see that." Emily nodded again, trying to memorize every instruction. Daniel clicked a remote, and a set of stage lights warmed the space. "Camera practice," he said. "Look straight ahead, then turn slowly as if acknowledging an audience. Try not to blink too fast." Emily followed his directions, though her heart raced. She could already imagine the cameras, the flashes, the eyes of powerful strangers judging every move she made. After an hour of rehearsal, Daniel dimmed the lights and handed her a bottle of water. "You did well, Miss Harper. Better than most people on the first day." Emily offered a tired smile. "Thank you. I hope it will be enough." He nodded. "Remember, the public loves two things, confidence and mystery. They will expect both from the wife of Adrian Blackwell." The words echoed in her mind as she left the studio. Outside, the car idled at the curbside. Emily stepped inside, leaning her head briefly against the cool window glass. The city blurred past in streaks of late-afternoon gold. When she reached the Blackwell estate, the mansion towered beneath the dimming sky. She hesitated at the door, gathering the courage to enter the life she had signed herself into. The housekeeper opened the door. "Good evening, Mrs. Blackwell." Emily flinched at the title, still unfamiliar. "Mr. Blackwell is in the library," the housekeeper added. Emily walked down the hallway, her steps quiet on the polished floor. She paused at the entrance of the library. Adrian sat in an armchair near the fireplace, his cane resting against the table beside him. The fire cast a warm glow across the sharp lines of his face. He turned his head slightly when he heard her. "You sound tired," Adrian said softly. Emily stepped inside. It was a long day. There was a pause. "You completed it," Adrian said. "That matters." Emily sat across from him, the warmth of the fire easing some of the tension in her shoulders. For the first time that day, she allowed herself to breathe a little easier. This was her new life, and it had only just begun. The following morning arrived with a pale gray sky hanging low over the Blackwell estate. Emily woke earlier than she intended, the unfamiliar softness of the guest bedroom sheets making it difficult to tell where dreams ended and reality began. Her first full day as Adrian Blackwell's wife, on paper, had begun. She dressed quietly and made her way down the staircase. The house was silent except for the faint ticking of a grandfather clock and the distant hum of a coffee maker in the kitchen. When she entered the dining room, she expected to find the long table empty, but Adrian was already there. He sat at the head of the table, posture straight, wearing a charcoal suit even though the sun had barely risen. His cane rested against his chair. Before him sat a cup of black coffee, untouched. He lifted his head when he heard her steps approach. "Good morning, Emily." His voice was steady, low, precise, like it always was. Emily hesitated before sitting 2 seats away, unsure of the proper distance. "Good morning." "You did not sleep well," Adrian observed, even though he could not see her tired eyes. "How do you know?" she asked softly. He tapped his index finger lightly on the table. "Your footsteps. You walk slower when you are exhausted." Emily blinked in surprise, unsure what to say. A housekeeper brought breakfast. Adrian did not reach for anything until Emily did. She gently clinked her fork against the plate by accident, and he paused, orienting himself by sound before starting to eat. After a few minutes of silence, he spoke again. "Claire informs me that your first public appearance will be sooner than anticipated." Emily froze slightly. "How soon?" "Tonight." Her fork halted midair. "Tonight? I am not ready." "No one is ready the first time," Adrian replied. "But you will manage." Emily took a shaky breath. "What event is it?" "The quarterly board dinner," Adrian said. "Executives, shareholders, and my brother will be present." Emily's stomach tightened. "Your brother? The one who caused the scandal?" "Yes," Adrian answered. "He will test you. They all will." Emily swallowed hard, visions of cameras and judging eyes filling her mind. "I only just started learning all of this." Adrian leaned back slightly, his expression unreadable. "You are not required to perform perfectly. You are required to stay composed. That alone will unsettle them." Emily looked down at her hands. "I am afraid of embarrassing you." "You will not." His voice carried a certainty she did not expect. "You speak honestly. You stand without pretense. That unnerves people who have spent their lives lying." She looked up slowly. "Why does that matter so much to you?" Adrian's jaw tightened for a moment. He did not answer immediately. Instead, he folded his hands on the table. "When I lost my sight," he said quietly, "everyone around me became an actor. Every conversation had an agenda. Every gesture was staged. The only real voice in that room the night of the crash was yours." Emily felt her breath hitch. "You do not owe me anything for that," she whispered. "I know," Adrian said. "That is why it matters." Before Emily could respond, Claire appeared at the doorway holding a stack of documents. "Mrs. Blackwell, your schedule is ready. We have rehearsals for introductions, posture, and coordinated entry with Mr. Blackwell." Emily stood, feeling the weight of responsibility settle over her shoulders. Hours later, she found herself standing in a mirrored rehearsal hall. Daniel, the media coach from the previous day, adjusted her posture while Claire demonstrated the proper pace at which she should walk beside Adrian. "You must enter together," Claire explained. "Mr. Blackwell will follow the sound of your steps. If you hesitate, he will hesitate. If you move with confidence, he will appear confident." Emily nodded, practicing her stride. The polished floor echoed with each step. "Now practice the moment when he offers his arm," Daniel said. Emily turned as Adrian approached, guided into the room by Claire. He paused until he heard her inhale. Emily took a small step closer and placed her hand lightly on his forearm, the way Daniel had shown her. Adrian's expression remained calm, but she felt the subtle tension in his arm relax, almost imperceptibly. "Again," Daniel instructed. "This time, breathe before you move." They repeated the sequence several times until Emily could feel Adrian matching her rhythm. By evening, she was exhausted but steady. As she prepared to leave the rehearsal hall, Adrian stopped her with a quiet statement. "Emily." She turned. "Yes? There is something you must understand before tonight." She waited, her pulse quickening. "The board believes you are weak," Adrian said. "They will expect you to falter. When you do not, It will change everything. Emily felt a slow, determined breath fill her chest. I will not falter, she said. Adrian nodded once, as if he heard not just her words, but the conviction behind them. Then tonight, he said, we walk in as one. The Blackwell board dinner was held in an exclusive penthouse restaurant overlooking the Chicago skyline. By the time the car carried Emily and Adrian up the winding drive toward the private entrance, the city lights glittered below like scattered diamonds. Emily inhaled slowly, pressing her hands together to keep them from shaking. Claire opened the car door. Remember your training, she whispered. Steady steps, controlled breathing. Walk beside him, not ahead. Emily nodded, smoothing the front of her dress. Adrian stepped out with practiced precision, his cane tapping once on the pavement before finding its balance. Emily moved to his side, letting her footsteps guide him. The rhythm they had practiced earlier flowed naturally now. 2 sets of steps, perfectly aligned. As they approached the entrance, murmurs drifted through the glass doors. Executives, shareholders, and family members had already gathered. Cameras from approved press outlets were positioned near the entrance, their flashes ready to fire. Claire leaned forward slightly. If at any point you feel overwhelmed, keep your eyes on a fixed point and breathe. You will be fine. Emily nodded again. When the doors opened, all conversations inside seemed to pause. Every head turned toward them. Adrian Blackwell, the blind CEO the media claimed had lost control of his empire. And beside him, Emily Harper, the unknown woman the world assumed could never fit into this life. Emily felt the weight of every stare on her skin. Daniel's voice echoed in her memory. Confidence and mystery. She lifted her chin a little. Adrian sensed the shift in the atmosphere immediately. We are being watched, he murmured quietly. I know, she whispered. Do not let them see fear. She steadied her breathing. I will not. They stepped into the room together. A few gasps sounded near the center table. Someone whispered, That is her? Another voice added, This will be a disaster. Emily kept walking. A man in an expensive suit approached them. His smile was polite, but his eyes were sharp. Adrian, he said, gripping Adrian's arm. I see you brought your companion. Emily recognized him immediately from the photographs in the briefing packet. Alexander Blackwell, Adrian's younger brother. Alexander turned to her with a smirk. So this is the woman who agreed to marry him. I hope you understand what you have stepped into. The Blackwell name is not a charity program. Emily felt her stomach twist, but Adrian's subtle shift in posture told her not to back down. Emily, Adrian said evenly, this is my brother. Emily met Alexander's gaze directly. It is nice to meet you. Alexander chuckled. We will see how long you think that. Emily held her ground. She remembered Daniel's words. Silence is stronger than a defensive answer. She said nothing. Adrian angled his head slightly toward her. Emily, would you walk with me? She nodded and guided him forward through the room. More murmurs followed them. Some curious, some hostile, some surprised by how composed she seemed. At the long dining table, Adrian found his seat with a gentle tap of his cane. Emily sat beside him. She felt dozens of eyes still on them, waiting for her to slip, to embarrass him, to prove she did not belong. The first test came quickly. A board member leaned forward from across the table. Mrs. Blackwell, he said, drawing out her new title with thinly veiled sarcasm. Would you care to tell us how you and Adrian met? The table quieted. Forks paused midair. Emily felt her pulse rise. She had rehearsed several versions of the story during media training, but this moment felt different. Colder, sharper. She inhaled once, letting her voice steady as Daniel taught her. We met on a difficult night, Emily said softly. A night that changed both of our lives. Adrian has faced challenges recently, but he has never once lost his strength or his clarity. I saw that strength long before anyone else recognized it. The table shifted. Some guests exchanged glances. A few eyebrows rose. Alexander leaned back, studying her carefully. For the first time, his smirk faded. The conversation resumed, but the tone of the room had changed. Emily felt it ripple around her like a quiet wave. Throughout dinner, Adrian remained calm, answering questions with deliberate care. Each time Emily guided him with her voice or mirrored his timing, she could feel the room adjusting, reconsidering the assumptions they held when she first walked in. Near the end of the evening, Alexander stood and clinked his glass. "A toast," he said loudly, "to appearances that seem perfect from a distance, but we all know may not last." A few people laughed under their breath. Emily felt anger rise inside her, sharp and uninvited. Before she could think, she stood, her voice carried through the room. "Appearances do not last," she said. "Integrity does. And if anyone in this room questions Adrian's ability to lead, they should ask themselves why a man who cannot see still stands taller than those who have never faced a real challenge in their lives." The room went silent. Even Alexander froze. Adrian turned his face slightly toward her. Though he could not see her, something shifted in his expression. Respect, and something deeper. Emily sat down slowly, her heart pounding. The dinner continued, quieter this time, more careful. When the event ended, Adrian offered his arm. Emily placed her hand on it, guiding him toward the exit. As they stepped outside into the cool night air, Adrian spoke quietly. "You surprised them." "I hope in a good way," Emily replied. "In a necessary way," Adrian corrected. "You stood your ground." Emily exhaled slowly, her breath visible in the night air. "I did what I could." Adrian paused, turning slightly toward her. "You did more than that." For the first time since signing the contract, Emily felt something unfamiliar settle in her chest. Not fear, not dread, possibly pride. The car ride back to the Blackwell estate was quiet, but it was not the strained silence Emily had feared. It was a silence filled with something thoughtful, something shifting, something she did not yet have a name for. Adrian sat beside her, his cane resting across his lap, his face angled toward the faint hum of the city rushing by outside. When the chauffeur opened the door in front of the mansion, the night air felt colder than before. Emily stepped out first, guiding Adrian up the stone path. The moment they entered the foyer, Claire hurried toward them, her expression tightened with concern. "Mr. Blackwell," she said. "We have a situation." Adrian's posture stiffened. "What happened?" Claire handed him a tablet. A rumor was released during the dinner. Someone from the board leaked that Emily is a paid spouse. The media has already picked it up. Emily felt the floor tilt under her feet. "Paid spouse? They are trying to make me look like I am using you." "It is worse," Claire said. "They are framing it as an exploitation scheme on your part as well. They are implying that Adrian manipulated a vulnerable woman into marriage to gain sympathy." Emily's breath caught. "That is not true." "They know that," Adrian said, gripping his cane. "The truth does not matter to them. The optics do." Emily swallowed hard. "What do we do?" Adrian tilted his head slightly toward Claire. "Bring the full report to my study." As Claire hurried away, Emily followed Adrian through the hallway. The study door closed behind them with a soft click. Adrian placed both hands on the back of a chair, grounding himself. "This was not an accident," he said quietly. "Alexander has been waiting for an opportunity to destabilize me. Tonight gave him ammunition." Emily stepped closer. "Because of me?" "No," Adrian replied firmly. "Because you stood your ground. Because you drew attention. Because you showed a strength they did not expect." Emily felt her heartbeat echo in her ears. "So what happens now? What will they do?" "They will attack your character first," Adrian said, "then mine. Then the legitimacy of our marriage. They believe that if the world doubts us, I will lose support from the board." Emily felt her voice shake. "This is exactly what I was afraid of." Adrian turned toward her, his expression firm. "You did nothing wrong. Do you understand that?" Emily nodded, though uncertainty still fluttered inside her. Claire returned with a stack of printed reports. "The story is gaining traction. It will be all over the morning broadcasts." Adrian straightened, the shift in his posture unmistakable. The cold, commanding CEO emerged fully now. "Prepare a press statement," he said. "Schedule a public address for tomorrow morning." Emily's eyes widened. "A public address?" "Yes," Adrian replied, "but not the kind the board expects." He reached out slightly, searching the air with his hand until Emily stepped closer and touched his fingers. He closed his hand around hers gently. "You will be by my side," he said. Emily's breath hitched. Are you sure that is wise? They already think I do not care what they think, he said calmly. I care what we show them. Emily's heart pounded so hard she could feel it in her throat. What do we show them? The truth, Adrian said, that you are not a woman bought, you are a woman chosen, and that I stand with you not as part of a contract, but as a decision. Emily's voice trembled. But the contract, Adrian released her hand briefly, reached into a drawer, and pulled out a thick envelope. He placed it on the table between them. I had this prepared in advance, he said. If the board ever tried to use our arrangement against us. Emily picked up the envelope, opened it, and froze. Inside was the original contract, fully signed. Adrian reached toward the table, fingers brushing the edge of the papers. Hand it to me. Emily placed it carefully in his hands. The fire from the hearth flickered, warm gold across his face as he held the contract. Then, without hesitation, Adrian tore it down the middle. The sound was sharp, final, undeniable. Emily gasped. Adrian. There is no contract anymore, he said. No terms, no conditions, no obligations. He dropped the torn pieces onto the table. If you walk out today, you owe me nothing. Emily stared at him, stunned. Why would you do that? Because you defended my name tonight, he said quietly. Because you spoke the truth when others twisted it. Because you walked beside me with courage that has nothing to do with a signature. His sightless eyes lifted toward her, and yet Emily felt as if he saw her more clearly than anyone ever had. And because, he continued, I refuse to let anyone, including my own family, rewrite your integrity. Emily's breath shook. So tomorrow, what do we tell the world? Adrian stepped closer, close enough that she could feel the warmth of him. We tell them that you are not my contract, he said. You are my choice. Emily felt her chest tighten with a rush of emotion she could not contain. Admiration, respect, gratitude, something deeper blooming quietly beneath it all. Adrian extended his hand. Emily Harper, he said softly, will you stand with me tomorrow? Emily placed her hand in his, her voice steady. Yes, I will. The fire crackled behind them as the torn contract lay scattered across the table. And for the first time since the day she signed her name, Emily no longer felt like she was trapped. She felt free, and she felt chosen. Morning arrived with a pale, golden light stretching across the Chicago skyline. News vans were already lined up outside the Blackwell estate, engines humming, cameras being set up, reporters brushing off the cold as they prepared for the story that had exploded overnight. Headlines flashed across every screen. Blind CEO married a paid spouse? Corporate scheme or desperate move? Who is Emily Harper? Inside the mansion, the atmosphere was tense but focused. Emily stood in front of a mirror as Marissa pinned the last strand of her hair. Her hands trembled slightly, but her eyes held something steadier than fear. Adrian's words from the night before echoed inside her. You are not my contract. You are my choice. Claire stepped into the room holding a tablet. They are ready for you both. Emily nodded, smoothing the fabric of her dress. Her heartbeat thudded loudly, but not the way it had thudded the night before. This time, it was not dread. It was resolve. She followed Claire down the hallway toward the foyer. Adrian waited there, standing tall with his cane in one hand. Even without his sight, he sensed her presence immediately. Emily, he said softly. I am here, she answered. He extended his hand. She took it, feeling the steady strength of his grip. Together they walked toward the large double doors. Beyond those doors, reporters were gathering like an ocean of moving shadows and blinding flashes. Before Claire opened the doors, she whispered, Stay close to him, speak clearly, and remember, you are not defending yourself. You are defining yourself. Emily nodded. The doors opened. A wave of cameras ignited instantly, bright and relentless. Journalists surged forward, microphones extended. Mr. Blackwell, is it true your marriage is a contract? Miss Harper, were you paid to marry him? Is this a publicity stunt for the company? Emily felt the barrage like a physical force, but Adrian stepped forward calmly. His voice carried through the crowd with a controlled resonance. Thank you all for being here. There have been rumors regarding my marriage to Emily Harper, and I am here to address them directly. The crowd quieted, hungry for the statement. Adrian reached for Emily's hand again. She allowed it, grounding herself in the contact. The board believed that my blindness made me weak, Adrian said. They believed I could be manipulated. They believed I could not choose a partner without assistance or ulterior motives. A murmur rippled through the reporters. They were wrong. Adrian turned slightly toward Emily, though he could not see her. His voice deepened with conviction. Emily Harper did not marry me for money. She did not marry me for power, influence, or advantage. She stood beside me last night in a room full of people waiting to watch her fail. Instead, she defended my name when others used it for their own gain. Cameras clicked rapidly. Reporters leaned in. She acted with integrity, Adrian continued. She acted with courage, and she acted with dignity. Emily felt emotion rise in her chest, but she held her composure. Adrian reached into his coat and lifted the torn contract papers, now sealed in a transparent folder. This, he announced, was the contract. He opened the folder and let the halves fall apart in his hands for the cameras to see. It no longer exists. I destroyed it. Emily Harper is not bound to me by legal obligation. She is free to walk away at any time. Journalists erupted. Then why stay married? Why destroy the contract now? Miss Harper, will you leave him? Emily stepped forward, her voice steady and clear. I am not leaving. Flashes burst across the courtyard. I stayed because Adrian has never treated me like something he owns, Emily said. He has treated me like someone he respects, someone he believes in. Adrian's expression remained calm, but something in his posture shifted, softened. Emily continued, people may doubt us. They may question this marriage. But the truth is simple. I chose to stay because I believe in him, and because he has given me every reason to believe in myself. A hush fell over the reporters. The wind moved gently across the patio, carrying her words further than she expected. One journalist finally spoke. So what happens now? Adrian tightened his hold on Emily's hand. Now, he said. We move forward. Emily turned toward him slightly. Together. The flashes brightened again, but this time Emily did not shrink from them. She stood tall beside Adrian, her hand in his, her heart steady. As they turned to head back inside, a familiar warmth settled in Emily's chest. Not pride, not relief, something gentler, something real. Inside the mansion, away from the cameras, Adrian paused. Emily, he said quietly, thank you for choosing to stay. She smiled softly. Thank you for giving me a choice. He lifted her hand to his chest, just over his heartbeat. This, Adrian said, is where you belong. And with that, the door closed behind them, shielding them from the noise of the world as their story, no longer a contract, no longer a performance, truly began.